Ryan checked his reflection in the hallway mirror for the third time in 5 minutes, adjusting his collar, smoothing down hair that refused to cooperate, second-guessing the navy button down his sister Claire had insisted made him look approachable. Approachable. As if he had any idea what that even meant anymore. 5 years since his last date. 5 years since the divorce. 5 years of convincing himself he was fine alone, that he and Sophie were enough, that he didn't need anyone else complicating the careful life they'd built together. But Claire had worn him down. Months of gentle pushing, of telling him Sophie needed to see her father happy, of insisting that this woman was perfect for him, kind, funny, loved kids, worked as a pediatric nurse. Claire had shown him exactly one photo, just enough to confirm the woman was attractive but not enough to seem shallow about it. A blind date. The whole thing felt like something from a different decade, but Claire had promised it would be low pressure. Just dinner at his place, nothing fancy, see if they clicked. The doorbell rang and Ryan's stomach lurched. He took a deep breath, told himself it was just dinner, that he could do this. Sophie was at a sleepover at her friend Mia's house, giving him the evening free, no pressure, no expectations. Just two adults sharing a meal and conversation. He opened the door. Time stopped. Emma stood on his front porch, holding a bottle of wine and a bouquet of flowers, her mouth slightly open in shock that mirrored exactly what Ryan felt. For a long, suspended moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. They just stared at each other like they'd both seen a ghost, because in a way, they had. Ryan's ex-wife. The woman who'd walked out of their marriage 5 years ago with barely an explanation, beyond irreconcilable differences, and I can't do this anymore. The woman who'd missed Sophie's 5th birthday, her 6th, her 7th, 8th, 9th. The woman who'd sent child support payments on time every month but never called, never visited, never fought for custody, or even asked for visitation. The woman Ryan had spent 5 years trying to forget, to move past, to stop loving, standing on his doorstep. For a blind date his sister had set up. Emma recovered first. Ryan, I didn't know. Claire said she told me his name was Ryan, but I never thought there are thousands of Ryans, and she showed me a photo, but it was from behind, and she stopped, realizing she was babbling, and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. I should go. Yeah, Ryan said, but his voice came out rough, unfamiliar. You should. Neither of them moved. Emma looked different. Her hair was shorter, falling just above her shoulders instead of the long auburn waves she'd always worn during their marriage. She'd lost weight, not in a healthy way, but in a way that suggested stress, worry, sleepless nights. There were fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. But she was still beautiful. Still achingly, impossibly beautiful, in a way that made Ryan's chest hurt. Claire set this up, Emma said quietly. Didn't she? Ryan's mind was racing, connecting dots he should have seen earlier. His sister's insistence that this woman was perfect for him, her refusal to share details beyond the basics, the way she'd asked pointed questions about whether he was ready to face the past. He'd thought she meant dating in general, moving on from the divorce. He hadn't realized she meant this specifically. I'm going to kill her. Get in line, Emma said. And there was the ghost of a smile on her face, sad and wry. And for just a second, Ryan remembered lazy Sunday mornings when they'd read the paper together and made jokes about advice columns, when everything had been easy between them. Then he remembered coming home to an empty house, to a note on the kitchen counter saying she couldn't do this anymore, to divorce papers delivered by a lawyer, to Sophie asking every single night for months when Mommy was coming home. The memories hardened something in his chest. You need to leave, he said. And this time he meant it. Emma nodded. She set the wine and flowers down on the porch railing with careful, precise movements. I'm sorry for showing up like this. For everything. I'll tell Claire this was a terrible idea. She turned to go. Daddy? Ryan's heart stopped. He spun around to see Sophie standing in the hallway, wearing her purple pajamas with the unicorns, her overnight bag at her feet. She must have forgotten something, must have convinced Mia's mom to bring her back. And now she was staring past Ryan at the woman on the porch, her expression confused, searching, trying to place a face she'd almost forgotten. Sophie, honey, I thought you were at Mia's. I forgot Teddy, Sophie said, still staring at Emma. Mia's mom brought me back, and she said she could wait because you had company, and... She took a step forward, squinting slightly in that way she did when she was trying to remember something important. Do I know you? Emma had gone completely white. She gripped the porch railing like she might fall without it. Sophie, she whispered, and the name came out broken, reverent, like a prayer. Sophie's eyes went wide. Ryan watched his daughter's expression shift from confusion to recognition, to something that looked like pain. She'd been 4 when Emma left. 4 years old, and now she was 9, and the woman standing on their porch looked similar to the photos Sophie had seen, but different enough to create doubt. But there was no mistaking the way Emma had said her name. "Mommy?" Sophie's voice was small, uncertain, and Ryan felt something crack in his chest. Emma's composure shattered. Tears spilled down her cheeks and she nodded, unable to speak. Sophie looked up at Ryan. "Daddy, why is Mommy here?" Ryan had no idea how to answer that question. He'd spent 5 years trying to explain Emma's absence in ways that wouldn't hurt their daughter. She had to go away. She couldn't stay. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that are hard to understand. He'd never said your mother abandoned us, or your mother didn't love us enough to stay because he couldn't bring himself to make Sophie hate her mother. Even when he'd wanted to, even when his own heart was breaking. But now Emma was here, on their porch, and Sophie was looking between them with those big hazel eyes, Emma's eyes waiting for someone to explain what was happening. "It's complicated, sweetheart," Ryan said finally. "Is she your date?" Sophie asked, and her voice held a note of hope that absolutely destroyed him. "Is that why she's here?" "It was a mistake," Emma said quickly. "Your Aunt Claire. She didn't tell either of us. I didn't know I'd be seeing your father. I would never have." She stopped, looking helplessly at Ryan. "I should go." "No." Sophie's voice was suddenly firm. She picked up her overnight bag and walked past Ryan to stand directly in front of Emma. She was tall for 9, already coming up to Emma's chest, and she stared at her mother with an intensity that was pure Ryan. That careful assessment, that unwillingness to be lied to. "You left when I was little. Daddy said you had to go away and couldn't come back." "I did have to go away," Emma said, dropping to her knees so she was eye level with Sophie. Her hands were shaking. "But not because of you, never because of you." "Then why?" "Sophie," Ryan said gently, "we don't have to do this right now." But Sophie ignored him. She was focused entirely on Emma, and Ryan recognized the set of her jaw. Once his daughter decided she wanted answers, there was no redirecting her. "You don't send birthday presents. You don't call. Mia's mom got divorced too, and her dad still calls every week and comes to her soccer games. Why don't you?" Emma's face crumpled, and she covered her mouth with both hands, trying to hold back a sob. "I'm so sorry," she managed. "Sophie, I'm so sorry." Ryan watched this scene play out like he was underwater, everything moving too slowly, sounds muffled and strange. His daughter confronting the woman who'd abandoned them. His ex-wife on her knees, crying on their front porch. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. He was supposed to have an awkward but pleasant dinner with a stranger, maybe schedule a second date, maybe not. Instead, he had the past and present colliding, and his 9-year-old daughter at the center of it. Sophie was crying too now, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. "I thought you didn't love me anymore." "No." Emma reached out instinctively, then stopped, unsure if she had the right to touch her own daughter. Sophie made the decision for her, stepping forward into Emma's arms. Emma held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, like she might disappear if Emma loosened her grip even slightly. "I love you so much. I've loved you every single day. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. And I didn't know how to fix it." Ryan's throat was tight. He should stop this. Should send Emma away and deal with the fallout with Sophie later. Should protect his daughter from more pain. But watching them hold each other, watching 5 years of Sophie's carefully hidden hurt come spilling out, he couldn't make himself interrupt. If you're feeling this story so far, if these words are reaching somewhere deep, please hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happens next, the truth that's been hidden for 5 years, will show you that sometimes the people we think abandoned us were actually trying to save us in the only way they knew how. Sophie pulled back and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Are you staying for dinner?" Emma looked up at Ryan, and he saw something in her expression he couldn't quite name. It wasn't hope exactly, more like desperation mixed with resignation, like she expected him to slam the door in her face, but was praying he wouldn't. Every instinct Ryan had screamed at him to protect himself, to protect Sophie, to not let this woman back into their lives where she could hurt them again. 5 years. 5 years of being both parents, of handling scraped knees and bad dreams and parent-teacher conferences alone. 5 years of watching his daughter wonder why she wasn't enough to make her mother stay. But Sophie was looking at him now, and in her eyes he saw something he hadn't seen in a long time. A spark of hope. His daughter wanted this, wanted her mother, and maybe that mattered more than his own hurt. "Come inside," he heard himself say. "We should talk." Emma's relief was visible, physical. She stood slowly, helping Sophie up with her. They walked into the house together, and Ryan closed the door behind them, sealing them all inside with the past they'd been running from. The house felt different with Emma in it. She stood in the living room looking around like she was in a museum, taking in the changes: new couch, different paint color, photos of Sophie at various ages lining the mantel. Her eyes lingered on each photo, drinking them in, and Ryan realized she was seeing all the moments she'd missed. First day of kindergarten, first lost tooth, school concerts and Halloween costumes and birthday parties. "You kept everything the same," Emma said softly, gesturing to the kitchen layout, the placement of furniture. "Mostly," Ryan said. "It's home. Didn't seem right to change everything." Sophie had put her bag down and was hovering near Emma, not quite touching, but close enough that she could, if she wanted to. "Do you want to see my room? I have a new desk, and Daddy helped me paint it purple." Emma smiled through tears. "I'd love that." They headed upstairs, and Ryan stood alone in the living room, trying to process what was happening. His sister had orchestrated this, deliberately, knowing it would blow up both their lives. He pulled out his phone and texted Claire, "We need to talk now." Her response came immediately. "I know you're angry, but you'll thank me later. Give her a chance to explain, please." Ryan stared at the message. Explain what? That she'd decided their marriage wasn't worth fighting for? That their daughter wasn't enough reason to stay? What explanation could possibly justify 5 years of absence? But there was something in the way Emma had looked at Sophie, something raw and desperate and heartbroken. And there was that medical alert bracelet on her wrist that he'd noticed on the porch. Details were nagging at him, pieces that didn't quite fit the story he'd told himself about why she left. Footsteps on the stairs pulled him from his thoughts. Emma came down alone. "Sophie's showing Teddy all her new stuffed animals. She asked me to wait down here while she introduces them properly." Despite everything, Ryan almost smiled. That was pure Sophie making sure all her stuffed animals got equal attention. Emma stood awkwardly near the couch, clearly unsure whether she should sit. "I can go. I know this is. I never meant to ambush you like this." "Claire meant to ambush us," Ryan said. "Question is why?" Emma's hands twisted together. She was wearing that medical alert bracelet, and now that Ryan was looking for it, he could see other changes too. The way she held herself, more fragile somehow. The slight tremor in her hands. The shadows under her eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. "Can we talk?" Emma asked quietly. "Really talk. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you 5 years ago." Ryan's chest tightened. "So tell me." "Not here. Sophie could come down any minute, and this isn't something I want her to hear yet." Emma took a shaky breath. "Please, Ryan. I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know I destroyed everything, but I need you to understand why. And then if you want me to leave and never come back, I'll respect that, but you deserve to know the truth." He studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation, of games. But all he saw was fear and grief, and something that looked like regret so deep it had carved lines into her skin. "Sophie," he called up the stairs. "Mom and I are going to talk for a few minutes. You okay up there?" "Yeah," Sophie's voice floated down. "Can Mommy stay for dinner?" Emma's eyes closed and fresh tears leaked out. That single word, Mommy, seemed to undo her completely. "We'll see, honey," Ryan said. He looked at Emma. "My office. 5 minutes. And then you're going to tell me everything." Emma nodded. She followed him to the small office off the living room where Ryan handled bills and work emails. He closed the door, and they stood facing each other in the cramped space. And suddenly Ryan was terrified. Because whatever she was about to tell him was going to change everything again. He could feel it in the air between them, heavy and electric. Emma's hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them together. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "There's something I should have told you 5 years ago. Something I couldn't tell you then because I thought I was protecting Sophie. But I was wrong about everything." The office felt too small suddenly, the walls pressing in as Ryan waited for Emma to continue. She stood with her back against the closed door like she might need to run, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Whatever she was about to say, it was costing her everything to get the words out. Just say it, Ryan said, and he was surprised by how gentle his voice came out. He'd expected anger, bitterness, but standing here looking at this woman who used to be his whole world, all he felt was tired, tired of not understanding, tired of the questions that had haunted him for 5 years. Emma reached up and pushed her hair back from her face, and that's when Ryan noticed the medical alert bracelet again. Really noticed it this time. The engraving was too small to read from where he stood, but Emma caught him looking, and her hand dropped to her side. I have a genetic condition, she said finally. Early onset familial Alzheimer's disease. I was diagnosed 6 months before I left. Right after Sophie's 4th birthday, the words hung in the air between them, and Ryan's brain struggled to process them. Alzheimer's. The disease that had taken Emma's mother when Emma was in her 20s. He remembered the funeral, remembered holding Emma while she cried, and told him about watching her mother fade away, how terrifying it had been to see the woman who raised her forget her own daughter's name. You have... Ryan couldn't finish the sentence. His legs felt weak and he sat down heavily in his desk chair. You have what your mother had. Emma nodded. She was crying silently now, tears streaming down her face unchecked. It's genetic, rare, but it runs in families. My mother died at 52. She started showing symptoms at 47. I'm 38 now, Ryan. The neurologist said I probably have 10 to 15 good years left before the symptoms become severe. Maybe less. Ryan's mind was reeling. 6 months before she left. That meant she'd known for half a year. Had been carrying this diagnosis alone while they shared a bed, raised their daughter, went through the motions of normal life, and she'd never said a word. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked. Emma, we were married. You were dealing with this, and you left. You let me think you didn't love us anymore. Because I did love you, Emma said, and her voice broke completely. I loved you so much it terrified me. And Sophie God, Ryan, she was 4 years old. 4. And all I could see was my mother's face, in those final years. The way she looked at me like I was a stranger. The way she forgot how to dress herself, how to eat, how to speak. I watched her disappear piece by piece, and it destroyed me. She slid down to sit on the floor with her back against the door, pulling her knees to her chest like she was trying to make herself as small as possible. Ryan wanted to go to her, but he couldn't move, couldn't process what he was hearing. I thought I was protecting you both, Emma continued. I thought if I left cleanly, if I made it seem like I wanted out, you could both move on. You could tell Sophie that Mommy had to go away and eventually she'd stop asking about me. You'd find someone else, someone who could be there for Sophie's entire life, someone who wouldn't make her watch her mother slowly forget who she was. That wasn't your decision to make, Ryan said, and anger was finally breaking through the shock. You don't get to decide what I can handle, what Sophie needs. You just left. Do you have any idea what that did to her? What that did to me? I know. Emma was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I know, and I'm so sorry. I've been in therapy for 3 years trying to undo the damage that decision did, trying to understand why I thought running away was the answer. But in that moment, Ryan, I was so scared. The doctor had just told me I was going to lose everything, my memories, my ability to care for myself, eventually my life. And all I could think about was Sophie watching it happen. Ryan stood up and paced the small office, 3 steps one way, 3 steps back. His chest felt tight, like he couldn't get enough air. You should have told me. The day you got diagnosed, you should have come home and told me, and we should have figured it out together. That's what marriage is supposed to be. I know that now, Emma whispered. But then I couldn't think clearly. Every time I looked at Sophie, I saw her 10 years in the future, watching me forget her name, watching me not recognize her face. I couldn't bear it. I thought a clean break would be kinder. Kinder? Ryan's voice rose despite himself. You think abandoning your daughter was kinder than being honest with her? She spent 5 years thinking she did something wrong, thinking she wasn't enough to make you stay. Emma made a sound like she'd been physically struck. No. Ryan, no. Please tell me you told her it wasn't her fault. Of course I told her that, Ryan snapped. I told her every single night when she cried herself to sleep. I told her when she asked why other kids had mommies and she didn't. I told her you loved her even though I had no proof of that, because you never called, never visited, never gave me anything to work with, except child support payments and silence. They sat in that silence now, heavy and suffocating. Ryan could hear Sophie moving around upstairs, the soft thump of her feet on the floor, their daughter. The child Emma had tried to protect by leaving, not understanding that her absence had hurt Sophie more than any disease ever could. Claire knew, Emma said after a long moment. Not at first. I didn't tell anyone for almost 2 years. But then I ran into her at a coffee shop and I broke down, told her everything. She's been helping me, meeting with me every few weeks, sending me photos of Sophie, telling me stories about her life. Ryan's head snapped up. Claire knew? For 3 years? I made her promise not to tell you. I said if she told you, I'd disappear completely and she'd never see me again. Emma lifted her head, meeting his eyes. She was trying to protect Sophie too. She knew if I stayed in Sophie's life in some small way, through her, it was better than nothing. And she's been pushing me to come back, to tell you the truth. She said I owed you that much. So she set up a blind date, Ryan said slowly, understanding clicking into place. She forced us into the same room because she knew neither of us would agree to meet otherwise. Emma nodded. I didn't know it was you. I swear, Ryan. She showed me a photo from behind and used your first name and I've been so lonely, so tired of handling this alone. When she said she knew someone who might be perfect for me, who understood loss and had a big heart, I wanted to believe it was possible, that maybe I could have something good again before. She stopped, her voice failing. Before the disease took everything. The words hung unspoken between them. Ryan ran his hands through his hair, trying to organize his thoughts. 5 years of anger and resentment were colliding with this new information, and he didn't know how to feel. Part of him wanted to scream at her for making this choice alone, for stealing 5 years they could have had together as a family. Part of him understood exactly why she'd done it, could see the terrified logic of a woman who'd watched her own mother deteriorate and couldn't bear to put her daughter through the same thing. Are you showing symptoms? He asked quietly. Emma shook her head. Not yet. Some minor memory issues, but the doctors say that could just be stress and anxiety. I get tested every 6 months. So far, my cognition is normal. But it's coming, Ryan. Maybe not this year or next year, but it's coming. And you were just going to face it alone? Watch yourself disappear with nobody there who loves you? I didn't think I deserved anything else, Emma said simply. I made my choice. I had to live with the consequences. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since she'd appeared on his doorstep. She was thinner, yes, but there was something else. A kind of brokenness that went deeper than physical weight. She'd been carrying this alone for 5 years. The diagnosis, the fear, the guilt over leaving, no wonder she looked like she'd aged a decade. Sophie deserves to know her mother, he said finally. Not 5 years from now, not after you're gone, now, while you're still you. Emma's eyes widened. Ryan, I can't. I left her. She must hate me. She doesn't hate you. She's hurt and confused, but she doesn't hate you. Ryan thought about Sophie upstairs, about the hope in her voice when she'd asked if Emma was staying for dinner. She's been waiting for you to come back. Every birthday, every Christmas, every school play she watched the door hoping you'd show up. Emma covered her face with both hands and sobbed. Great, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. Ryan watched for a moment, then something in him gave way. He crossed the small office and sat down on the floor beside her, not touching her, not yet, but close enough that she knew she wasn't alone. If this story is touching your heart, if you're feeling the weight of these 5 years of separation and misunderstanding, please hit that like button and subscribe. Because what happens next will show you that some mistakes can lead to the most beautiful second chances, and that it's never too late to choose love over fear. They sat like that until Emma's sobs quieted to hiccups and shaky breaths. Finally, she wiped her face with her sleeve and looked at him. I don't know how to be her mother anymore. I miss so much. What if I don't know what to say? What if I make it worse? You show up, Ryan said. That's all she needs. You show up and you're honest with her and you love her. The rest we'll figure out. We? Emma's voice was small, uncertain. Ryan sighed. He wasn't sure what we meant yet. Wasn't sure if he could forgive her. If they could ever be anything more than co-parents navigating an impossible situation. But he knew with absolute certainty that Sophie needed her mother, and that Emma needed her daughter, and that he couldn't be the one to keep them apart. We need to tell her, he said. Not everything, not the details, but she needs to know why you left. She needs to understand it wasn't about her. She's 9 years old, Emma said helplessly. How do we explain Alzheimer's to a 9-year-old? The same way we explain everything else, honestly, age-appropriately, together. The word together seemed to break something open in Emma. She turned to look at him fully, and Ryan saw gratitude and regret and love all tangled up in her expression. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you giving me another chance. Maybe not, Ryan said, but Sophie deserves to have her mother. And despite everything, despite how angry I am and how much you hurt us, I can't look at that little girl upstairs and tell her she can't see you. I won't do that to her. A soft knock on the door made them both freeze. Daddy? Mommy? Are you fighting? Emma and Ryan exchanged a look. Emma wiped her face quickly and Ryan stood, offering her his hand. She took it and let him pull her up. Her hand was cold and small in his, and for just a moment Ryan remembered holding this hand at their wedding, during Sophie's birth, on countless ordinary days when they'd been happy together. He opened the door. Sophie stood there in her unicorn pajamas, Teddy clutched to her chest, her face worried. I heard crying. Emma knelt down so she was eye level with Sophie. We were talking about some grown-up stuff, and it made us sad. But it's okay. Everything's okay. Sophie studied her mother's face with that serious expression she got when she was trying to understand complicated things. Are you staying for dinner? Emma looked up at Ryan. He nodded. Yes, Emma said, and her smile was watery but genuine. I'm staying for dinner. Sophie's face lit up. Can you stay after dinner too? We could watch a movie. Dad lets me stay up late on Fridays. Sophie, Ryan said gently. It's Thursday. But it could be like a Friday, Sophie argued. A special Friday because Mommy's here. Emma laughed, and it was the first genuine sound of happiness Ryan had heard from her. I would love to stay for a movie, if it's okay with your dad. Ryan looked at his daughter's hopeful face, at his ex-wife's tentative smile, at the strange second chance that had literally shown up on his doorstep. He thought about Claire's meddling, about 5 years of pain and misunderstanding, about a disease that would eventually steal Emma away from them again. But right now, in this moment, his daughter was happy. Emma was here. They had time. Yeah, he said. It's okay. Sophie threw her arms around both of them, pulling them into an awkward group hug. Ryan's arm ended up around Emma's shoulders, and hers around his waist, and Sophie in the middle. And for just a second, it felt like they were a family again. Broken and complicated and uncertain, but together. They ordered pizza because Ryan had forgotten about the dinner he'd planned for his blind date, and Emma admitted she hadn't eaten much all day because she'd been too nervous. They sat around the coffee table in the living room. Sophie insisted they eat there instead of the dining room because it was more cozy. And Sophie dominated the conversation, telling Emma everything about her life. Her best friend Mia, her teacher Mrs. Patterson, who was strict but fair, the book series she was obsessed with, the fact that she learned to ride a bike without training wheels last summer. Emma listened to every word, like Sophie was telling her the secrets of the universe. She asked questions, laughed at Sophie's jokes, and when Sophie mentioned learning to ride the bike, Emma's face crumpled for just a moment before she composed herself. I'm sorry I missed that, she said quietly. Sophie reached over and patted Emma's hand. It's okay, Daddy took a video. We can watch it. So they did. They watched videos on Ryan's phone, Sophie's first bike ride, her school concert last spring, her 9th birthday party last month. Emma cried through most of them, silent tears that she didn't bother wiping away. Sophie snuggled against her side, and Ryan sat on Sophie's other side, and they looked through 5 years of memories Emma had missed. When the videos ended, Sophie asked the question Ryan had been dreading. Mommy, why did you leave? Emma looked at Ryan, panic in her eyes. He nodded, encouraging her. They'd agreed to be honest. I was sick, Emma said carefully. I found out I have something wrong with my brain that's going to make me forget things eventually. Like Grandma had you. Remember we talked about Grandma and how she forgot things? Sophie nodded solemnly. She'd been too young to really remember Emma's mother, but she'd heard the stories. I was scared, Emma continued. I thought if I left it would be easier for you. I thought you wouldn't have to watch me get sicker. But I was wrong, sweetheart. I made a big mistake. I should have stayed. I should have been brave enough to be with you and your daddy even though I was scared. Are you still sick? Sophie asked, and her voice trembled. The sickness is still there, Emma said. But I'm not forgetting things yet. I'm okay right now. But you will forget things? Later? Emma's face crumpled, but she held it together. Maybe, probably, but not today, and not tomorrow. And that means we have time to be together if you want that. Sophie thought about this for a long moment. Then she said something that made both adults' hearts stop. If you're going to forget things, we should make lots of good memories. That way, even if you forget them, I'll remember for both of us. And I can tell you the stories and show you pictures and help you remember. Ryan's throat closed up. His 9-year-old daughter was braver and wiser than either of them. She'd just offered to hold on to her mother's memories, to be the keeper of their family story, without a moment of hesitation. Emma pulled Sophie into her arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "You're so smart," she whispered into Sophie's hair. "So kind and smart and perfect. I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do," Sophie said, matter-of-factly. "You're my mom." They put on a movie, Sophie's Choice, some animated thing about dragons that Ryan had seen at least 20 times. Sophie fell asleep halfway through, her head on Emma's lap, her feet stretched across to Ryan. Emma stroked Sophie's hair absently, and Ryan watched her watch their daughter, memorizing every detail. "Thank you," Emma said softly, not looking away from Sophie, "for letting me stay, for giving me this chance." "Don't thank me yet," Ryan said. "We have a lot to figure out. Custody arrangements, how we explain this to people, therapy. Sophie needs therapy probably, after everything. And you and I." He stopped, not sure what he was trying to say. "I know," Emma said. "I know it's complicated. I'm not asking for us to be together again. I'm not asking for anything except the chance to be Sophie's mother, however that looks." Ryan nodded. That was fair. That was reasonable. They could co-parent. People did it all the time, even in complicated circumstances, even when one parent had a terminal diagnosis hanging over their head. But watching Emma with Sophie, seeing the gentleness in her expression, remembering how it felt to hold her hand earlier, Ryan wondered if it was really going to be that simple. 5 years of anger hadn't erased the fact that he'd once loved this woman more than anything. That part of him, buried deep, still did. The movie ended, and the credits rolled. Sophie stirred but didn't wake. Ryan stood carefully and scooped her up. "I should put her to bed." "Can I help?" Emma asked hesitantly. They carried Sophie upstairs together, one of those perfect moments of co-parenting coordination where no words were needed. Emma pulled back the covers and Ryan laid Sophie down. Together they tucked her in, and when Sophie's eyes fluttered open briefly, she smiled at seeing both her parents there. "Love you," she mumbled, already falling back asleep. "Love you too, baby," Emma whispered, and kissed Sophie's forehead. Ryan did the same, then turned off the light. They stood in Sophie's doorway for a moment, looking back at their sleeping daughter, and Ryan felt the weight of everything that had happened, everything they'd lost, everything they still had to face. Downstairs, Emma gathered her coat. "I should go. It's late. When can you come back?" Ryan asked. Emma looked stunned, like she'd expected him to tell her this was a one-time thing. "Whenever you want. Whenever it's good for Sophie." "Tomorrow," Ryan said. "Come for lunch. We can start figuring out a schedule, what this looks like going forward." Emma nodded, tears gathering in her eyes again. "Okay. Tomorrow. I'll be here." Ryan walked her to the door. They stood there awkwardly, neither sure how to say goodbye. Finally Emma said, "I know sorry isn't enough. I know I can never make up for the time I missed, but I'm going to spend every day I have left trying." "I know," Ryan said, and he did. He could see it in every line of her face, the weight of her regret. "Emma, I'm still angry, I'm still hurt, but I'm also glad you came back. Sophie needs you, she's always needed you." "What about you?" Emma asked softly. "Do you need me?" Ryan didn't know how to answer that. A week ago, an hour ago, he would have said no, would have insisted he was fine without her. But standing here now, with the ghost of their past and the possibility of their future hanging between them, he wasn't sure. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I guess we'll find out." Emma smiled sadly. "That's fair. That's more than fair." She started down the porch steps, then turned back. "Ryan, thank you, for being braver than I was, for being the parent I should have been." She left before he could respond, driving away into the cold November night. Ryan stood in the doorway and watched her taillights disappear, then closed the door and leaned against it. His life had just gotten impossibly complicated. His ex-wife was back, carrying a diagnosis that would eventually take her from them again. His daughter's heart was already reattaching to a mother who might not remember her in 10 years. And his own heart. His own stupid, stubborn heart was remembering what it felt like to love Emma, even though he'd spent 5 years trying to forget. But when he went back upstairs and checked on Sophie, she was smiling in her sleep. Really smiling, the kind of peaceful, happy expression he hadn't seen on her face in years. And Ryan thought maybe that was enough. Maybe the complications, and the pain, and the uncertainty were worth it, if it meant his daughter got to have her mother back, even if only for a little while. Because second chances weren't about perfect circumstances or guaranteed happy endings. They were about showing up when it was hard, about choosing love even when you were scared, about being brave enough to risk your heart again, knowing it might break. Emma had made the wrong choice 5 years ago. She'd chosen fear over faith, protection over presence. But tonight she'd made the right choice. She'd come back. She'd told the truth. She'd asked for forgiveness without expecting it. And Ryan had made the right choice too. He'd let her in. He'd given her the chance she didn't deserve but desperately needed. Not because he'd forgiven her not yet, maybe not ever completely, but because love wasn't about keeping score. It was about doing what was best for the people you loved, even when it cost you everything. He thought about Emma driving home alone, probably crying, probably terrified she'd wake up tomorrow and find out this was all a dream. He thought about Sophie upstairs, sleeping peacefully for the first time in years because her mother had come back. He thought about himself, standing in the middle of his quiet house, trying to figure out how to navigate this impossible situation. And he realized something important. They weren't going to get it right. There would be hard days and painful conversations and moments when the weight of Emma's diagnosis crushed all of them. There would be arguments and tears and fear about the future. But they would face it together, as a family, however imperfect, however complicated, however temporary. Because that's what love was, not the absence of fear, but the choice to show up anyway. Not the promise of forever, but the commitment to now. Not perfect people making perfect choices, but broken people choosing each other anyway. Emma had come back. Sophie had welcomed her home, and Ryan had opened the door, literally and figuratively, to a second chance he never thought he'd get. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, for the first time in 5 years, their family was together. And sometimes, that was the greatest gift of all.